It's hard to erase the searing images from Hurricane Katrina that emerged 10 years ago this week. People standing on top of water-immersed houses waiting to be rescued, corpses floating on streets, wrecked homes and wrecked lives. In all, nearly 2,000 people died. I'm joined today by Tanis Starch. She relocated to San Diego after evacuating New Orleans and has written a book about her experience. And her name was Katrina, Life After the Storm. I'm also joined by Chris Van Gorder, CEO at Scripps Health. He was part of a team sent to Texas to help care for Gulf Coast evacuees. Tanis, let's start with you. You lived in New Orleans in 2005 near Lake Pontchartrain. You worked at Tulane University. Take us back to that time when you first heard that a Category 5 hurricane was headed your way.
Oh, it was a Saturday, 98 degrees, 90% humidity. We were on the campus of Tulane where we were welcoming our new students to campus. So we had students moving in, parents moving in. All of a sudden we hear that there is a hurricane coming to the Gulf. So we decided to have all those families go back to their hotels, leave their luggage, and then just be with themselves until we find out more about the hurricane. But because hurricanes come often, a lot of the new students were from out of town, so naturally they were a little nervous about, oh, we need to kind of take shelter. But most of the people there, the faculty, well, let's go out to have some lunch and let's just kind of see what's going on. So we were very calm about it.
When did you decide it was time to leave?
I decided around that late afternoon at the restaurant. We were all watching the Weather Channel. And we noticed that the ball was getting larger and larger and larger. That's when I began to get very, very nervous. I said, honey, we need to go. My husband, we have to get out of here. He's like, oh, it happens all the time. It never hits. It's going to turn. Well, that night at 3 a.m., I tried to call to see if I can get a hotel room. Everything was booked. That's when I panicked. I said, honey, we have to go. So we left that night and we tried to get out of town really quickly. Then we met up with some traffic where it was just like thousands and thousands of cars stopped there. We pulled over to a rest stop, and it was just acreages full of hundreds and thousands of people with all of their furniture on top of their cars. They were pulling trailers. I panicked at that point.
So you were part of this mass exodus to Texas, and what did you see?
It looked like a refugee camp. There was tents everywhere, mattresses, household goods. People had been evacuated from Palkemans Parish before us, and there was a panic in the air. And that's when we both got very nervous. And we weren't quite yet at a hotel that we could find a place to stay. So we were worried that we would be living there also in the lawns with all the other people. We were very, very, very nervous and frightened at that time.
So Chris, you and your Scripps Health team went to Texas, to Houston, to the Astrodome to treat evacuees. What was the scene like inside?
Well, we left actually around September 13th, so a lot of the evacuees, and they really asked us to call them survivors, not evacuees, when we were there. It was just a sea of humanity in the middle of the Astrodome and the Convention Center in Houston, with all the possessions that they had, you know, with them. A big sign in both locations with looking for their missing loved ones that they'd been separated from. Literally hundreds of patients needing to be treated every single day for a variety of things.
And what effect did what you see have on the team?
Well, I'll tell you the story of just a couple of days later when the Astrodome was actually being evacuated once again because Hurricane Rita was now coming in. There was this, you know, all these people that had now found at least some housing in the Astrodome now were being moved once more, probably to Oklahoma or some other state. But I'll never forget the vision of an elderly gentleman that was sitting on his cot. Everybody else had packed up, and he was just sitting on the cot, rocking back and forth, crying. And a police officer and a Red Cross volunteer went over to help, but it was clear that he was not ready to move one more time. And so one of our doctors just burst into tears. And that was kind of the effect we had all along.
Tanis, you returned home. What did you find?
Total devastation. We'd lost everything in our townhome. There was not a bird or sign of life in the air. The air was very cold and still, and it was just devastation everywhere you turned. Doors were in the middle of the street. My family room furniture was across the street. It was just horrendous. The air was so bad, my husband even developed a bad skin rash just trying to get in and out of our house to see if we can salvage anything. it was just so horrible. I'm even having slight moments thinking about it now. Just there was still deadness around. You could feel it in the air, and there was really no help in sight.
Very quickly now, socioeconomic status and race were big topics during Katrina and in the aftermath. You have said that that was a teachable moment. What were the lessons to be learned from what happened?
I'm hoping that the lessons are what we learned for our future leaders to really look at cultural self-awareness, developing a cultural proficiency and an understanding and appreciation of all life, not just one type of life, but the human life. The fact that you did have a lot of individuals that were not cared for based on their race or their social and economic status is a travesty. We are all Americans here in this country together. We need to have compassion for one another, just as the doctor was speaking about his team coming in and helping. But each and every day, we can help someone who is different from ourselves by accepting them, loving them, and getting to know them and not making those judgments. So the teachable moment is, let's look within to find out truly who we are as human and value the life of others.
Tanis, Chris, we've got to close it there. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.